Hello there. Not sure if anybody... Pardon me. Dear me. Sorry about that. Sneezing fit. Hello to anyone who's online. I think it's only Goran so far. There should be a few more people. I'll wait a few moments. Oh, 4 viewers. Good heavens. Three viewers. Somebody just left. Took one look and thought no. It's back in just 1 second. Right, are we all here? Sorry about that, I just had to pop away. And I do apologise, I have a slight cold, which was worse yesterday, so if anybody was listening yesterday, I'm afraid you would have heard me through the veil of a cold. But I suppose that's another good reason for running these as webinars. I don't have to have you in the same room so that you aren't in danger of catching my terrible germs. So let's say that's a good thing. Okay, I think we're just going to get going. I think there are people here. I've only seen one person send me a chat message, but I will assume that everybody else is online and ready to go. If you haven't found the chat button, it is in the top corner of your screen. I think it's the right, I can't remember actually, it's the right or the left. It's on the right-hand side on my screen. If you can find that, then you can send a chat message. And that's the way to communicate, to ask questions, because I can't obviously see you or hear you. So if you want to ask a question at any point, then use the chat button. I won't see the chat buttons while I'm doing the PowerPoint presentation, but I will stop every so often and go back to have a look at the chats to make sure that I'm catching up with people who are sending questions. Right, that was enough for me to say to give anybody time to send any chats. And nobody has, so we're going to simply start the broadcast. Okay, let me bring up the slides. Okay, with a bit of luck, you'll now see a slide which says opportunities from Horizon 2020. How to interact, I've just been through all that about the chat messages. Also, do bear in mind that there is a 30-second time delay. So you don't hear me till 30 seconds or so after I've spoken. So there may be a slight delay in sending your chat messages and then a slight delay in me answering them. So apologies if there is that sort of delay, but that's simply the way the system works. Ignore the stuff about Q&A and hands up. We're not going to worry with that. It's the chat function that is the one to use. Treaty and the mission statement, I'm going to go through these quickly as I always do, because I don't think, actually there may be one person who's not been to one of these webinars before. Article 167, which talks about culture, not directly relevant to Horizon 2020, so we can move on from that. But if you're interested, that of course is the article in the treaties, in the legal documents which govern how the European Union functions. This is the article which talks about culture. I always point out the fact that it took them 40 years to put anything into the treaties about culture. So no matter what the rhetoric is about culture being important for the European Union, in terms of legal responsibilities, nothing turned up until the 1992. Okay, Europe 2020, on the other hand, is directly relevant to Horizon 2020. You'll see that the first two talk about technological development and innovation, information and communication technologies, competitiveness of small and medium-sized enterprises. All of that is directly relevant to the Horizon 2020 program. I mean, in summary, the Horizon 2020 program is the EU's R&D, research and development program, for absolutely everything that could possibly need research or development. And therefore, that is a key plank of the Europe 2020 agenda, which is the mission statement for the next 10 years. And therefore, Horizon 2020 receives a vast amount of European money to spend on those sorts of projects and activities. Under the three types of funding programs, the Horizon 2020 program fits in as a transnational fund. So it is one where you are required to have partners for most of the strands. There is one strand where you do not require partners, but most of the strands do require partners. The transnational funds are 15% of the budget, as opposed to the structural funds, ERDF and ESF and so on, which take up 73% of the budget. And in the transnational funds, the Horizon 2020 program takes up more than half. It's a huge budget for the transnational funds. So sort of about half the transnational funds, I think I'm right in saying that, goes on the Horizon 2020 budget. Okay. Now, just before we go any further, just to make absolutely certain that everybody is still okay, I'm just going to go back and check the chat messages, and there are no chat messages so far. So I'm assuming that everybody is thrilled and happy, and we can go back to the slides. Okay, transnational funds. You'll see there's a summary of some of the funds that I talk about, and you'll see Horizon 2020, a third one down, 80 billion euros. It's a bit less than that, I think, these days, but still, you'll see that it's way in excess. The next largest budget is the Erasmus Plus, which is just under 15 billion. So Horizon 2020 really is a huge opportunity. On the other hand, it has particular criteria which may make it less of an opportunity. However, let's have a look. Transnational funds, main types of grants, collaborative projects and mobility. Horizon 2020 isn't really about mobility. It doesn't give small grants for people to go and see things or do things or whatever. Horizon 2020 is about projects, and the projects have to involve partners from different countries, and the funds cannot be used for annual revenue funding. They have to be completely focused on particular projects. Okay, and there is a principle of match funding, which we'll get to. Match funding rules, I think, even in Horizon 2020, the match funding is a little more generous, even though it's a huge program and they're giving away quite substantial amounts of money. The match funding requirements are, again, not quite as onerous as they might be seen to be for the culture program. The culture program really does have the most onerous and demanding match funding requirements of all these European programs, it seems to me, but there you go, that's just my perception. Here we go, what I've just been saying at the very beginning, Horizon 2020 for art, research and innovation, 78.6 billion, there's the correct figure. Research, innovation and business competitiveness. It's the successor to the 7th framework program, which, as many of you will know, or actually some of you may know, or none of you will know, that was the successor to the 6th framework program, which followed the 5th framework program, and so on and so forth all the way back. These framework programs were the programs that invested in similar R&D activities. It's all about the, as part of Europe 2020, there is this innovation union strategy to create this innovation-friendly environment in the European Union. If you look at the statistics, you will discover that in spite of the European Union being one of the wealthiest group of countries in the world, the investment in R&D is actually one of the lowest. It's certainly far lower than it is in the United States. We are just not spending or not investing as much money in R&D, and the European Union wants to change that because R&D is incredibly important in terms of future development, particularly capitalizing on innovative uses of the new technologies and so on and so forth. If we don't invest in R&D, we're stuffed. Okay. Now, this webinar is going to be much shorter No, actually not much shorter. It's about the same length as Europe for Citizens, but it's not going to go on forever. And the reason for that is that this is one of these programs where you can either do it in 20 minutes. I mean, we'll be a bit longer than 20 minutes, or you could do it in a whole day. There's not much in between. Once I have given you the sort of overarching understanding of what happens in the different strands and how it works and the application procedures and so on and so forth, in order to go into any detail, you really do need to spend an entire day doing this. I mean, I have spent an entire day doing this. I'll never get that day back in my life, but still, hey-ho, because it is incredibly complex in certain areas, mainly in terms of understanding how research and development funding works. But let me give you the overview, and then you may have some questions about the way it's structured. There are strands, substrands, and actions. That's the key terms. There are 3 main strands, okay? It is actually more streamlined. I mean, I think it is much easier to understand than the 7th framework program. 3 strands: excellent science, which is obviously about science; industrial leadership, which is obviously about industry; and a better society, which is the sort of catch-all program for everything else. Societal challenges, social economic problems such as health, energy, environment, security, and so on. So those are the 3 broad strands. The 2 in red are the ones where we have so far identified possible opportunities for arts, culture, creative industries, and so on. I can't quite see it in science, but you never know. The challenge is that within each of these strands, there are many substrands, as you can imagine. And within the substrands, there are a number of actions. And I can't claim that I feel completely confident that I've identified every single opportunity. And do bear in mind that what we have had so far is opportunities for the first 2 years. The opportunities for 2016, 17, 18 have not yet been announced, or as far as I'm aware, they haven't yet been announced. When they are, there may be slight changes in this, and there may be other opportunities for arts, culture, heritage, creative industries. So those are the 3 strands. We're going to focus on 2: industrial leadership, better society. There is also, however, the SME instrument, the small and medium enterprise instrument. Any organization that has fewer than 250 employees can apply for an SME, or apply through the SME instrument, which is for innovation projects. This is the part that doesn't require partners in other countries. So if you're applying for the SME fund, it's simply to help your SME do something, okay? Now, SMEs is quite broadly, 250 employees, fewer rather than 250 employees, any sorts of enterprise. And what they are trying to do is certainly they're trying to open this up, certainly to the creative industries. So if you work in the creative industries, in the music business or design or fashion or any of those areas, then you may well qualify for the SME instrument. But it is about innovation projects, about growing and expanding their activities into countries in Europe and beyond. So it's very much about innovation, particularly technological-driven innovation. But I will say a bit more about the SME instrument as well a bit later on. So, which strands? Okay. Ongoing program of funding calls, competitively assessed proposals, so on and so forth. Usual, really quite similar. Industrial leadership, better society, and SME instrument, as I have just said. Right, which substrands? Industrial leadership. Now, what I have listed here are all the substrands for 2014 and 2015. Now, the 2014 deadlines have gone, but I thought that I would still include them because it would give you some idea of the sorts of substrands that have been relevant and, of course, may come up again in the future in similar ways. So there is still, for the 2015, the deadlines are in June, April, come to it. I've done so many webinars this week, I'm forgetting. But the deadline is coming up for 2015, so there's still a chance to apply. The industrial leadership includes leadership in enabling and industrial technologies. That includes ICT, content technologies, information management, and that includes those 4 there. So support the growth of ICT, innovative creative industries, SMEs, technologies for the creative industries, social media and convergence, technologies for better human learning and teaching, that's stretching the definition slightly, but still, And then advanced digital gaming and gamification technologies, if anybody is interested in that particular area. Then there's societal challenges. Now, this particular strand here, secure, clean, and efficient energy, was one that I initially dismissed as not being directly relevant. But when I did a little bit more work, I discovered that there had been this particular call in 2014, Energy Strategies and Solutions for Deep Renovation of Historic Buildings. So there you go. And again, I mean, that was a 2014 call. There may be others in the future that might also be relevant. The main strand, or substrand in strand 3, is reflective societies, cultural heritage, and European identities. And there were these 11 strands in 2014-15, and there are a number of them, 6 or 7, that have deadlines in 2015. Now, this is an interesting mix of quite academic research-related projects and quite practical technical projects. So you'll see, for example, going down the first few, European cohesion, regional and urban policies and the perceptions of Europe, cultural opposition in the former socialist countries, cultural heritage of war in contemporary Europe. I mean, those are quite academic-based research projects, or traditionally academic. But the next few, innovation ecosystems of digital cultural assets, advanced 3D modeling for accessing and understanding European cultural assets, and so on, are much more practical. They're looking at sort of supporting innovative ideas to address those particular needs, but they're looking for practical examples of whiz-bang technological solutions and so on. So it's a mix of different types of projects. And the ones that are still relevant in 2015, I'm going to go and give you a bit more detail later on as to what they're all about. Okay. Within each of those calls, so under each of those calls, so 3 strands, a number of calls, and then in each of those, there may or may not be any of these: research innovation actions and innovation actions. Now, the distinction between these is not completely clear, but the distinction essentially is the first one includes the word research. So the first one is about doing the sort of research part to establish whether or not this bright idea you've got is going to work, essentially. And the second one, innovation action, is really about sort of testing, prototyping, testing, demonstrating, piloting, and so on. So if you have already researched your idea and you need to test it, you go straight to 2. But if you're still at the research stage and need some support to actually do the research properly, then you will stay at 1. Then point 3 is coordination and support actions. Now, these are not covering research, but these are coordination and networking projects. Now, that's actually a little more straightforward because that might be something where, you don't actually have to be a research institute. You might be able to put an application in where you have the credibility, the experience, the links, the knowledge in order to get some funding to coordinate networking of various projects, programs, and policies. So that could be, if coordinating projects linked to one of the sort of themes we've just been looking at. Okay. Right. Partners. Right. I'm just going to, this is complicated, so I'm just going to go back and make sure that there are no questions as we keep going through this. Right. Okay. Belgium arrived. Fantastic. Okay, great. No problems. No other questions at this stage, so I'll go back to the okay, right, partners. Transnationality, or the carrying out of actions across national borders, is a guiding principle. So therefore, partnerships are okay. For both the RIA, the Research Innovation, and the IA, you need at least 3 partners from 3 different countries. So in spite of the fact that this is a huge program with huge amounts of money available, it's still no more than 3 as a minimum. I mean, I would suggest that you probably need at least 1 more than 3, but you can get away with just 3 organizations. The CSA, there are no specific requirements, but obviously if you are coordinating something, then they would prefer you to be coordinating a range of projects and activities across borders and not just coordinating all the projects that happen to be happening in Hungary or the UK or Macedonia or anywhere. Okay, there are no specific requirements for partners whatsoever for the SME instrument. Okay, so nothing complicated there. So the partners, quite straightforward. The aim of this is to help share learning across Europe, strengthens a reference to added value. So what they want to see is that there's transnational elements because that will create added value. How cooperating with other organizations is going to help you develop this wonderful thing that you're going to be able to then use and implement in many regions across the program area, or that you'll learn from each other as part of the experience, or how it's all going to be widely shared across Europe. Good, straightforward stuff. I mean, nothing complicated about all of this. Good. Eligible countries, so the usual member states, associated countries, so Norway and Iceland, the European Economic Area, Free Trade Area countries, the accession candidate countries, Albania, Bosnia, Macedonia, Montenegro, Serbia, and Turkey. Neighborhood countries, my understanding is that it currently includes Israel and Moldova, may include others. And it's also possible that you may have partners in other third countries in other parts of the world, not the big wealthy ones. So obviously this funding is not to subsidize the United States as a research partner, or those, or Canada or Australia or Singapore or whatever, but if you want to partner with a middle or a less well-off country then in some other part of the world that's relevant to your project, well, that may be useful. Okay, finding partners. Well, there are some structures within this. I mean, it's a huge program, as you can imagine, lots of people interested. So there is a matching service. You can go to that website, ideal-ist.net. There is a partner search facility on the Horizon 2020 portal website. It's free, but it's huge. I'm not actually quite sure whether it's that useful because it's so huge. It'll take you ages, I think, to make any sense of it, but it does exist. National contact points. Now, the way the national contact points work, just as a small point, is that, as you know, there is or should be a national contact point for each of the transnational programs within each member state. Horizon 2020 is so huge that there are national contact points for each of the thematic areas. So within every member state, you'll find that there are probably at least a dozen, if not more, contact points. There's a contact point for the energy strand. There's a contact point for the ICT strand. There's a contact point for the reflective society strand, and so on. So you need to find the right contact point, and they may have lots of contacts. I mean, they are appointed to be the contact point because of their knowledge, which will include their networking and their contacts in the area. You can attend workshops and present your synopsis. This is an interesting one. You need to sort of find out, and you need to get to Brussels because this is run by the Directorate General for Research, and that's in Brussels. So, but if you can get there, they're not huge meetings, and you get an opportunity to present your ideas. And there'll be, you'll be in a room full of people who may also be interested in other ideas or looking for partners or whatever. It's like a big blind date service, really, on a European scale. So that might be useful. And of course, your own networks. I mean, you may well find that through your own networks, your national, your European networks, you may well be able to find. And when I went to one workshop, somebody said the wonderful phrase, "You are never more than 3 handshakes from anyone," which I thought was interesting. It's a sort of slimmed down version of 6 degrees of separation. So 3 handshakes from anyone. Fantastic. Finances. How much money can you get? Yes. Small projects, 4 million. So for a small project, you can get up to 4 million euros. Okay. Large projects, you can get up to 8 million euros. The event intervention rate, so they will give you up to 100% of the direct costs and 25% of the indirect costs. Okay. Research projects get 100% of this. Innovation projects get 70%, so they have to find the 30% in match funding. So what they're saying is that if you're starting from scratch and you want to get a research grant, then they will give you 100% of the money. Okay, no match funding required. Fantastic. Innovation projects, obviously you've done some research, so you should be at a point where you've got something to show to other people as well, and therefore you should be able to generate 30% of the funding from other sources. Now, if you're talking about an application for 4 million, 30% is a huge amount. So you may not want to apply for 4 million. You may want to apply for a lesser amount. All organizations are subject to the same rules except non-profit, who always get 100%. So actually, in most cultural organizations, you could apply for 100% anyway, right? So ignore all that stuff about 70%. Of course, if you're a non-profit organization, you can get 100%. Same rate for all types of activity within the project, including management costs. So, it's not as if you get 100% for the scientists working in the lab and you only get a little less for the secretaries and the administrators who are making it happen or helping to make it happen. You actually get the same rate for everything. So again, I think it's generous. And you get 40% of the total grant paid in advance. I mean, I really do think this is very generous and, a good fund to consider. And as somebody pointed out, another workshop I went to, for all of this, 40%, 4 million, 100% if you're non-profit, all the commission requires in it back, obviously, is to deliver the project, but they're only looking at half a day meeting per year. That's it. That's the entire monitoring and evaluation carried out by the EC, right? So again, I think it's quite generous and quite a good deal. Eligible costs are defined as actual costs incurred during the project between the official start and end dates, determined according to the usual accounting practices and management principles, used solely to achieve the project, consistent with the principles of economy, efficiency, and effectiveness, recorded in the accounts, and exclusive of non-eligible costs. Okay, fairly straightforward stuff. And you will require an audit certificate for the final reporting stage, which complies with the guidelines and so on, just to make it absolutely clear that you spent the money in the right way on the right things, and so on. Okay, I'm just going to stop once again just to make sure that everybody's still awake, having me told them that you can get 100% of the money and it's all fabulous. No, everybody is still alive, I think. No one's, well, maybe you're not alive, maybe you've all gone to sleep. Okay, let's go back to the slides. It always takes me a while to get back to the slides. Apologies for that. Oops. Okay, application process. This is the summary. They suggest that it takes you about 2 months to prepare your application. Okay, the call will open and there'll be a deadline about 5 months later. You put together your partners, write your proposal, put it in. There is an evaluation process, which takes about 5 months altogether. There's a decision, and then there's a grant preparation and negotiation process. And that takes several months. And the reason for that is because these can be quite complicated. And this may be to do with the fact that it's R&D. So what you may be developing is some sort of product or prototype or way of doing things where there is going to be intellectual property rights, there is going to be royalties, there's going to be all sorts of things, all of which have to be signed and cleared before the project starts. It has to be absolutely clear as to, if you're going to develop, if something's going to come out of this project which has the potential to make lots of money, it has to be clear as to what the European Union is going to get out of this. Now, it's usually that they're not necessarily they want specific return, although they might. It's usually about sharing certain aspects of the development process. Now, that may be complicated or difficult. I'm not an expert in any of this, so I'm not going to go into any more comment about it. But the actual, it's not the matter they just send you a contract and you sign it. This is the matter of getting together with the commission and negotiating the terms of the contract. It can be like a long process to prepare a proposal because they are asking for a lot of detail. And it is pointed out that you should need, you may need several meetings between your core team to travel to get together to sort of really thrash out ideas and be clear about this. It's not something that can be done simply by email or the end of the phone. I mean, maybe some Skype meetings might help, but it could cost a bit to put together a proposal. But don't forget, you could be getting several million euros out of this particular project. Application. Find your partners, require a team, use the partner search options. And there's a summary. I put that document in as well because I found it, which it gives you a summary of some partner search options that may also be useful and relevant. Submit your proposal. Clear instructions. You have to get your PIC code. So the ubiquitous PIC code applies here as well as every other program. This is the 9-digit code, which is your reference for all your interactions with the EC. You get your PIC code, your partners get your PIC code, get their PIC codes. When you start your application, you put all the PIC codes in and up will pop all their details and away you go. Online only, no need to submit a paper application. Another program that's better than the culture program in terms of not requiring you to submit a paper application. Submit it all over the portal. It's an editable MS Word document. You can fill it in offline. Budget must be filled in online. So the budget has to go in online, but everything else can be done offline. And the partner details must be filled in online because they link up with the PIC code. So that's all part of the online system. Evaluation. Panel of independent specialists where they will look at, they depending on what your project is all about, they will have a panel of independent specialists who will provide advice, guidance, and so on and so forth. Grant agreement. Okay, this is a bit more detail about the grant agreement. So here, for example, it says what research and innovation activities will be undertaken, duration, budget, rates, costs, contributions, rights, and obligations. The grant agreement stipulate all partners are responsible, so you have to make sure that you have clarified the terms of the project with all your partners, so there's no nasty surprises when you share the final contract with your partners and they say, oh yes, we're happy with that. That's what they should be saying anyway. Okay, submitting a proposal. It's only open once the call is live. It comes from the specific topic page. So if you're going for a particular topic like ICT 19 or Reflective 3, then you will find that's where you can access the particular application form for that particular one. There are 3 tabs in the middle of the web page that you will see. One which is topic description, which provides information on the call. The conditions and documents, that's the really detailed and extraordinarily complex in some cases about all the deal submissions information. And then the submission service itself, once the call has been announced as being live, you can press a button which says start submission and go to the draft proposal form. You are recommended to use Internet Explorer. Apparently there are some issues with Chrome. There may be issues with others as well. Interesting, because I know some people who have problems with Internet Explorer. Chrome is better, but hey-ho, there you go. Once you've reached that page, then you can follow the steps outlined in that particular guidance document about how to register yourself and your company, the PIC number, and all the other bits and pieces. I don't think we need to go through that. Everybody knows that. Then you register your proposal, and then you can start editing your proposal. Then you can add in your partners. Then you can upload the proposal, enter the budget. See, it's all fairly straightforward. I don't think we need to go over any of that. Proposal contents. Okay. I'm saying this really just to reassure you that there's nothing hugely complicated about the particular form. The complexity comes in being clear about the detail of the project that you're actually going to do. General information is the usual stuff: contact details, summary of your activity, and declarations, and so on and so forth. Details about the participants and their contacts, so all the partners. Budgets. There has to be value for money, so just be very, very careful about that. And then the ethics questions. There will be ethics questions because these are R&D proposals, and therefore there could be all sorts of ethical issues and questions, so you have to be very careful about that. Call-specific questions, these will relate directly to the bid and interrogate suitability, excellence, innovation. These are the award criteria questions that are in all the other program proposals. So the first one, how does your project relate to the themes and objectives? The second one about what is the quality of your proposal? The third one about dissemination and communication, and the fourth one about project management of your relationship with your partners and so on. These are the sorts of things. Obviously, innovation and excellence are going to be completely crucial here. This is R&D we are talking about. Download the templates, follow the template format. When it's finished, click on upload. All quite straightforward. Don't forget, though, that each area of funding has a specific proposal relevant to its subcontract. Okay, you can view some samples of those forms online, and here is where you can see the sample forms. So there are, for RIA and IA, the sample form is there. For the CSA, the sample form is there, and for PPI. Now, I haven't talked about PPI because that's public procurement of innovation solutions in this particular instance. I'm not sure that it's actually terribly relevant to anybody who's likely to be registering for these webinars, so I'm not really talking about that. But for RIA, IA, and CSA, then you can see the sample application forms at those particular websites. Budget is the one that is online, all quite straightforward. A reimbursement of the eligible costs. And as I said, you can get 100% or 70% for innovation actions or 100% for not-for-profit. So again, I think most organizations at this webinar will be not-for-profit, so that's 100%, lots for money. Reimbursements tend to be largely for personnel costs, okay? You do not need timesheets if the people working on the project are working on this project full-time and not doing anything else. If they're working on the project part-time and involved in lots of other things, then you do need timesheets of one sort or another. Partner details. You also need to add full information about partners you're working with, other administration details. It takes more time than you think. Yes, it does. These application forms can be a bit complicated in terms of the detail they are required. Right, just some information then about the individual calls. So what I'm going to do now, in fact, what I'm going to do is just go back and make sure. I think that there are no questions because either you decided it's not for you or it's too complicated to get involved in. Well, I hope that latter isn't the case. But hey ho, we shall see. Two people have raised their hands. I don't know how to do that. Do you? Yeah, they've got two raised hands. I wonder what that means. Peter Inke has a raised hand. Pravinder Singh has a... Right, okay, there are two people who've got raised hands. I must admit, I'm not 100% sure how to deal with that. I do apologize. If you can find the chat button, that would be much more helpful. If you can send a chat message, then that is the best thing. If you raised your hand half an hour ago, then I'm sorry I missed that. I do apologize. Hopefully, you can send a chat message. Anyway, I'm going to go back to the slides at this particular point. Okay, individual calls. Right. What I'm going to do now is just go through a summary of each of the calls that are relevant in 2015. The first one is ICT 19, Technology for Creative Industries, Social Media and Convergence. So this is about bright ideas. Essentially, I don't have to read all this to you, exploring new ways of creating and accessing content. Okay? So if you are involved with the creative industries and you're involved with social media and you've got some bright ideas about how this all might be innovative new ways of helping create and access content that sort of brings together different platforms or mechanisms or media or whatever it might be, this could be relevant to you. Okay. Closing date 14th of April, not far. You can get money for an RIA and for an IA and for a CSA. Okay, so you get money for any of those in ICT 19, closing date 14th of April. ICT 20, Technology for Better Human Learning and Teaching. Now, this may be less relevant to creative industries. It's about defining frameworks and interoperability requirements for the building blocks of a digital ecosystem for learning, including informal learning. I think that it's interesting that it says there. It talks about game-based learning, interestingly, virtual environments, virtual worlds, and so on and so forth. So some of this might be relevant to some organizations in the creative industries. The deadline also, the 14th of April, you get RIA and IA. You can't get a CSA, but you can get a PPI. Again, I don't think you need to worry about PPI, particularly because the funding rate is only 20%. Who wants to know? Okay. Reflective societies. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 reflective society strands left in 2015. So I'm just going to go through these. Emergence and transmission of European cultural heritage and Europeanization. So this is deadline of 28th of May, and the only substrand is the RIA. The only action, rather, is the RIA. So you can get an RIA here. You can read all that. What it's essentially looking for is to explore and show how critical reflection on the historical, cultural, and normative roots of Europe's cultural democratic practices contribute to an evolving European identity today. Good academic research project. The second one, these are all date 28th of May, and I think most of them are RIAs because these are academic research type projects. European cohesion, regional urban policies and perceptions of Europe. Knowledge is much less significant on the contribution of this European policy to a positive identification of the European project or to the emergence of a valued popular sense of European identity. So research project there. Cultural opposition in the former socialist countries, another RIA. Numerous documents and objects testify to the rich variations of independent cultural movements. But what they want to do is provide some opportunity for this to become better documented and more widely known to the general public. So how might this happen? Cultural heritage of war in contemporary Europe. another RIA. The expressive way, many layers of cultural heritage war for national or European identities, the way in which you could research that and provide, again, some information that not otherwise currently known, and maybe help to better communicate your analysis of the cultural heritage of war. This is an IA, not an RIA, so this is something where they're expecting people to have got to a certain level. Innovation ecosystems of digital cultural assets. So the objective stated at the bottom there, enhancing the analysis of cultural resources to improve understanding of how European identity can be traced, constructed, or debated, and to use the resources to foster innovation. So it's quite interesting. It is actually an innovation project about how the analysis of cultural resources can help understand European identity and how we can better make sure that's communicated and shared and so on and so forth. Here we have a CSA. Now, communication dissemination platform. This might be relevant because this is not about doing the research. This is about helping the sort of develop and share the information. Provision of consolidated information on the findings of EU-funded projects, developing communication materials, improving the quality of existing text, organising in a professional way the dissemination of activities for research results, and so on and so forth. Okay, so ways of complementing what the European Union is doing by documenting, running some seminars, providing some online information, ways in which you could sort of help share the results of these various projects. And number 11 is another CSA, is creating impact from social sciences and humanities, which is essentially saying that this particular branch of science is one that has pretty much failed to sort of communicate its value and its impact on the world. People understand what happens when you research science or medicine and you build a better bridge, or you find a way of doing heart operations more effectively, or whatever it might be. What is the benefit of SSH research? So this is a way to identify the barriers to the valorization of this, understanding them, and maybe proposing some solutions that can be used in the future. Okay. A few words on the SME instrument. Now, this is the one which doesn't require partners. Now, it is for high growth, highly innovative SMEs. Okay. Global ambitions to disrupt established value networks in existing markets. High actively investing in innovation, looking to grow. Established for a while, not at a startup stage. So it's not for startup small businesses. In the UK, I put the UK contact point there because I thought that might be useful, but there will be a similar contact point for each of the other member states or countries participating in this, and you can get that from the overall Horizon 2020 contact point website that I provided earlier there. Okay, but there's a phone number, email, and website there for Steve Bradley, who's the UK contact point for this particular program. The way it works, it's a two-stage process. First of all, you submit a simple 10-page proposal. You get a £50,000 grant, from which you get a 10% success rate. Okay, sorry, from which there is a 10% success rate. So lots of people apply. So there's only a 1 in 10 chance of being successful. But if you are successful, you then get £50,000 to develop your project into a proper business plan, and certainly a business plan that includes a clear way in which this particular bright idea is going to make money. So they're looking for a commercialization of this particular project. And if you are successful, if you do receive this 50,000, then you can bid for the second stage based on your business plan and so on, which is the demonstration and the replication across markets and the full R&D and so on. You can get up to 2.5 million euros, okay, between 1 and 2.5 million euros. And there's a 1 in 2 success rate. So a better success rate for the second stage, but obviously only 1 in 10 success rate in getting through. And the third stage is the commercialization, is the actual, putting your project to market, as they say on Dragon's Den. Do we have Dragon's Den in other countries? I don't know. Commercialization. So there's no direct financial support for that. They don't give you money to make your project commercially viable, but they will arrange mentoring and other support in order to help you do that. Okay. Now, I've given you most of the key contacts you need, but if you're still a bit stuck, there is a summary of the contacts. There's the information about the programs for Horizon 2020, about the participants' information, the participation portal where you can register to get your PIC code, the overarching help desk, and the partner search mechanism. So those are the main European Commission links. There are some various documents that are listed there that you may wish to download. The participant portal manual. I think it's very straightforward. You don't need a manual to engage in the participant portal. And then there are some eligibility and guidelines document to download, and some advice on how to apply can be found in that particular PDF there. So lots of PDFs to download for a wet weekend when you have nothing else to read. Contact points. That's the overarching website at the top there, which links to the European Commission's list of all the various contact points. Do bear in mind that the contact points are for the separate strands and sub-strands. Do talk to them. That's the UK contact point there, or the overall UK website rather, and you can search for your national contact point in the individual sub-strand from that particular program. And that's it. We're back to the end. Do sign up for our EU Arts funding. We'll be reminding people about these forthcoming deadlines. For this particular program, it obviously is aimed at R&D. It therefore is thinking about universities, research institutes, and others like that. But there may be opportunities to join up with other organizations in some of these particular programs. But at least now you have, hopefully, a better idea of the Horizon 2020 program and an understanding of whether it might be right for you, and some appreciation of some of the areas where in some cases it's simpler and more straightforward than other programs, others where it's a bit more complicated. That's our services. You've seen that before. I think most people have seen that before, and that's the end of that. Okay. I'm now just going to go back to the chat button to see if anybody has sent any further questions. Slavo has missed the first 45 minutes. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Right, we'll see if we can sort that out, Slavo. That's fine. I'll talk to you separately about that. Okay, is there... Asked to stay on here for a few more moments to answer any questions you may have, as usual. I'll go back so you can see me. There I am. I'm still here. It's the real me. If you have any questions, then please do let me know. Well, Slavo, thank you for participating for 50 minutes. I'll arrange for you to be able to have access to the other 45 somehow. I'll send you an email about that. Okay, I'll just wait here, as I said, for another few minutes in case anybody has any questions. If you think about any other questions after this, then please do send me an email anyway about that. The DG unit workshops. The DG for innovation, whatever, research, whatever it's called, you'll need to go to their website. In fact, I'm sure on the Horizon 2020 website, they will give you the information about any workshops they are running in Brussels. But I have to say that your contact point in your member state should also be able to give you the information about any workshops they are running. But one of those sources, either the Commission's own website for DG Innovation and Horizon 2020 will have that, or the contact point in your own country, Peter, should be able to provide you with that information. And they're simply gatherings in Brussels where people are invited along to present projects and ideas, is my understanding. I've never been to one, I have to say, but people who have been to them say that that's what they're all about. I hope that's helpful. Okay. Are there any other questions? I told you this one wouldn't take quite as long, and it hasn't. But it is a Friday afternoon, so probably everybody wants to go home or not be sitting in front of this screen. Right. I'm going to sign off then. I don't think there's any more questions. Thank you very much for participating. Again, if you have anything you think of, then just send me an email. Thanks a lot. Cheers. Bye-bye.